Hello, Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? So today I'd like to talk about the essential matter of the international law, the war actually happening between the Israel versus Iran, and I will discuss about the legality of this war. But before that, I have to mention some of the critical factor of this war. You know that Lebanon and Israel war is actually a devastation right now in the present conversation, but it is actually not possible for the present world leaders to stop these types of critical war due to lack of will, lack of intention of war strategy of the international organization. For example, United Nations is actually a default organization for these regions. After 75 years later, it is actually failed to stop the war between the Israel versus Palestine. And as a part of this, before 3 or 4 months ago, with any kind of intention, without any kind of justification, America instigated the Israeli leaders to start a war between Israel versus Iran. And from this perspective, I would like to say that this war has no types of legality and single strategy in the time of present conversation between United Nations and other international organizations. From this perspective, as a critic, I would like to say that there is a specific laws. The law's name is UN Charter, and according to the UN Charter, Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, this is really prohibited of using force during the time of Persian attack, during the time of war. That means Jude ad bellum. Jude ad bellum means during the time of war, you can't never attack any kind of person without any kind of justification. And this is the codified laws of war, and it is also mentioned in Geneva Convention on, Geneva Convention 2, Geneva Convention 3, Optional Protocol on, and Optional Protocol 3. But who will build the cat? Who will supervise these types of matter according to the international law? I would like to say that the United Nations, it is directly organized these types of behavior of the international organization and other supervisional activities. But after observing the war strategy, I would like to say that they totally failed to stop these types of war strategy. The first reason is that this is the lack of their will. The second reason is that this is the lack of their intention to stop, to intervene these types of war. The third reason is that there are no combination between the world leaders. For example, Donald Trump is citing something, and next day Vladimir Lenin Putin is chanting anything. Even there are no combination or willful intention to stop and to intervene the war for the long time. So from this perspective, after a very good realization, I would like to say that after the commencement of the international law, international justification is totally failed to do these activities. Even you know that without any kind of justification, the Israeli leaders, they also attack on the Lebanon, and it is unjustified. It is also justified to attack any kind of nation in the name of Article 51, in the name of self-determination. But what is the actual rules of the self-determination? Self-determination means whenever you have no way, whenever you have no wall to make a very good justification over you, in that time you can make a war strategy, you can make a symptom strategy against any kind of world leaders, against any kind of war parties. This is called as the self-determination, and in the name of self-determination, it is actually justified. You can attack any kind of person without any kind of justification. But is it true Israel also attacking on those countries with any kind of intention, with following the Jews at Balaam? It is directly not true at all. From this perspective, as international critic, I have to say that international organization is totally bogus. They are irrelevant. Even they have no strategy to stop these types of war procedure and the war strategy. So how can it possible to stop these types of war in the future time? I would like to say that we have to take a very good measurement following different national or international strategies during the time of armed conflict. And you know that armed conflict can be two types. One is international armed conflict, and another is an international or domestic armed conflict. And according to the international laws perspective, armed conflict is actually prohibited during the time of the present generation. But no state is not following the steps of war strategy. No state is not following the steps of war procedure. From this perspective, this is totally a wrong idea, wrong supervision over the matter. And I'm not the expert in the international organization, but I'm doing my MPhil or masters in international organization. And from this perspective, I would like to say that this is the totally duty of the international organizations to refine the alternative dispute mechanism system among the nation state to intervene the war at any kind of cost. But unfortunately, they have failed to do so. So in the future time, how the international organization intervene these types of war? The first of all, we need a codified regulations. That means we have to reform the United Charter. The second reason is that we have to make a very good collaboration between the stakeholders, whether they can easily take some good idea to intervene the war. The third reason is that the non-state actors, sometimes the multinational organizations, non-state actors, they have to come forward to intervene the war with money, with uh, giving courts, even with helping the national states to stop these types of supervision matter. Otherwise, these types of systematic genocide, war against humanity, or war crimes has been happening in the universe till the last day of the universe, and we have no option to stop the bloodshed. So if you'd like to stop the bloodshed right now, definitely you have to take some strategy, and the first strategy is to you have to reform the UN Charter without any kind of codification, because UN Charter is not relevant after observing the present perspective, because it is so much ancient. In the year 1948, it has been organized by some international world leaders, but in the tourist perspective, UN Charter is literally irrelevant and unimportant. And so, how I can label the international organization, how I can label the criminal states by doing these types of crime against humanity, war crimes. So, most of the international political figures, they said that the Israeli attacks, it is not covered the crime against humanity or genocide. But after seeing the horrible incident has been happening by the Israeli nation states, Israeli attackers, it is totally reflect the willful intentionally genocide. And you see that here lots of people, lots of children, even lots of women, they are raped without any kind of justification. Lots of children has been killed without any kind of justification. So how you can label the steps of factor in the term of international law? So I think ICJ, International Court of Justice, and International Criminal Court, they have to come forward to move on over this matter. So if it is happen in the future time, no individual or single state will not apply Article 50 on in the name of self-determination, because in the name of self-determination they emphasized the way of genocide, they emphasized the way of war against humanity, they emphasized the way of war criminals. So I'm an ordinary person. So I think that we have to respect the international law and international organization, but the behavior of the international organization and international law, it is not codified to observe and to remove these types of genocides and crime against humanity in the future perspective. So while I'm talking about the jus ad bellum, the legality of force during the time of war, and definitely I have to follow the Geneva Convention 3 and optional protocol, because in optional protocol and in Geneva Convention they intentionally included some of the rational factor and relevant factor to stop these types of heinous activities during the time of war. So during the time of armed conflicts, definitely the two parties have to follow some regulations, and these regulations has been already codified in the name of Geneva Convention 3. So I think that as a advocate, this is not desirable nor essential for the future perspective to follow the existing international laws and regulations. At any cost, we have to remove the clerical mistake of international laws, and by this way, in the previous time, international leaders, they actually get the indemnity. But in the future time, if the law will be reformed, then there are no option to get the indemnity, and there are no option to escape from the liability of genocides, crimes against humanity, and crimes war crimes. You know that Donald Trump, he has been violating everything, every international law, but he will fully chanting something which is actually philosophy, which is against the philosophy of international law. Even there are no strategy, no police officers, there are no criminal trial who will stop the Donald Trump for his heinous activities. So I think that no one is above the law. We have to regularize, we have to utilize these types of law only for the development of our common future in the future time. And by my willful codification, it's my sole intention to reform the international organizational law and to reform the UN Charter. Definitely will be a powerful addition for the development of our international law in the future time. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.